The ocean can be your greatest friend or your deadliest enemy. Out here in the vast, dark emptiness of the Western Pacific, you are a tiny speck. The USS Ronald Reagan Carrier Strike Group cut through the waves. On the destroyer, USS John Finn, a young sailor stared at his sonar screen, listening for whispers in the deep. Suddenly, a faint line appeared. A ghost, a flicker. This was no whale. This was a machine, designed to be invisible. The officer joined him, both watching the weak line on the screen. The silent hunt had just started, and they were the prey. Out here, the first sign of danger is often the last. The silent hunt was on. One ghost is bad enough, but predators often hunt in packs. The John Finn tracked a contact, then another, then a third. 3 silent, military-grade machines moving in the darkness below. This was no random encounter. It was a coordinated pack, closing in. The Combat Information Center was electric with tension. 3 unidentified submarines. A nightmare scenario. Across the fleet, watertight doors sealed, weapons readied. No sirens, just the hum of a war machine waking up. The submarines dove beneath thermal layers, using ocean noise to hide. Destroyers spread out, creating a wider net of sensors. It was a deadly game of hide and seek. The stakes were impossibly high. The next move would decide everything. In a crisis, information is your most valuable weapon. Deep within the carrier, intelligence analysts raced to identify the submarines. They matched the faint acoustic signatures to their database. The results were chilling. A Chinese Shang-class and a Russian Akula-class submarine. Chinese and Russian subs working together, unprecedented. This was a coordinated, stealthy approach on a U.S. carrier group in international waters. The political implications were enormous, but survival came first. Admiral Hayes studied the tactical plot. 2 of the world's most advanced submarine fleets were teaming up against him. The coordination was terrifyingly precise. One sub would create a feint, drawing attention, while the other crept closer undetected. They used the carrier's noise as a cloak, hiding in its acoustic shadow. This was a deliberate, planned ambush, a message written in steel and shadows. The U.S. fleet faced a shadow alliance, a partnership forged in the deep with one goal: to sink the American carrier. Every sailor knew their duty: stand and fight. The threat was no longer theoretical. It was real, and it was happening now. The enemy was coordinated, cunning, and deadly. The Americans had to outthink and outfight them. The stakes had never been higher. The next move would be decisive. The fleet braced for the coming storm. The shadow war was underway. The ocean had become a giant chessboard. Admiral Hayes and his team faced unseen opponents. The price of failure: total destruction. The U.S. fleet shifted, destroyers and cruisers forming a protective screen. Enemy submarines used the ocean's features to hide. Pressure on sonar crews was immense. Combat sonar, possible weapon prep. The chess match was about to turn violent. Admiral Hayes did not hesitate. Go to condition 1. Seahawk helicopters launched. The game had changed. The next move would be deadly. The moment everyone dreaded had arrived. A sharp, distinct sound cut through the ocean, the high-pitched whine of a torpedo in the water. Torpedo in the water! Bearing 310! The call echoed across the fleet. The Chinese submarine had fired. The first shot of this shadow war. The carrier's captain ordered a hard turn, presenting the smallest target. Countermeasures launched. A Nixie decoy deployed, mimicking the carrier's propellers. The goal: fool the torpedo, make it chase a ghost. The Seahawks lifted off, armed with torpedoes and sonobuoys, racing to expand the fleet's ears. The escort ships moved to intercept. The USS Shoup fired a rocket-deployed acoustic jammer. It was a layered defense: decoys, evasive maneuvers, jammers, helicopters. The torpedo, confused by false targets, swerved away and detonated harmlessly. The fleet had survived the first attack. but everyone knew it was just the beginning. The enemy was still out there. The hunt was now active and deadly. Every second counted. The next shot could be fatal. The battle was far from over. The first torpedo was a warning. The next two were a declaration of war. Moments later, sonar detected two more launches, one from the Shang, one from the Akula. They were bracketing the carrier, firing from different angles to overwhelm defenses. The tactical plot became a dizzying display of threats. The carrier and escorts performed violent combat turns, launching more Nixie decoys. Helicopter engines roared. Officers barked urgent commands. The Seahawks dropped sonobuoys, building offensive sensors. On board, an operator listened for the faint signature of the enemy sub. Possible contact. Very faint, but it's there. He's repositioning for another shot. The enemy torpedoes were smart, programmed to ignore the first decoy. One locked onto the USS John Finn. The destroyer's commander ordered evasive maneuvers, but it was too late. The torpedo slammed into the stern, exploding with a deafening roar. The ship shuddered, but its tough hull held. Damage was severe, but she was still afloat and in the fight. The enemy had drawn first blood. The battle was escalating. The fleet braced for the next attack. Just when the situation seemed most desperate, the tables turned. The Chinese and Russian commanders believed they had the US fleet trapped, but they missed one crucial detail. Another predator was stalking them. The USS Idaho, a Virginia-class attack submarine, had been shadowing the carrier group undetected. Now, it was time to strike. The Idaho's commander had a perfect firing solution on both enemy subs. He targeted the Russian Akula first. Match sonar bearings. Solution ready? Fire 1. A heavy Mk-48 torpedo shot out, racing through the deep toward the Akula. The Russian crew, focused on the surface battle, never saw it coming. The torpedo struck mid-ship, the explosion rupturing the sub's hull instantly. The deep ocean became its grave. On US sonar screens, the Russian contact vanished. The balance of power shifted. The hunters had become the hunted. The US fleet had a silent guardian. The destruction of the Russian sub sent a shockwave through the battle. Sierra 3 is gone! The bridge of the Reagan erupted in relief, but the Chinese Shang-class sub was still out there, and now it was desperate. The Chinese commander, now the hunted, turned aggressive. He fired his remaining torpedoes in a wide spread, hoping for a lucky hit. The battle reached its furious climax. Torpedo alerts blared as the fleet dodged incoming weapons. The USS Idaho was ready, already tracking the Shang. As the Chinese sub sprinted toward the carrier, it exposed itself. "We have him! Fire 2!" Another Mk-48 torpedo shot out. The Chinese commander tried to evade, deploying decoys, but it was useless. The torpedo struck near the sail, tearing a massive hole in the hull. The sub began to sink, out of control, into the depths. On US sonar screens, the second hostile contact faded and disappeared. Silence returned to the deep. The attack was over. The remaining Chinese torpedoes, guidance lost, sank harmlessly. The battle was won. As the sun rose, the Western Pacific was calm again. The USS Ronald Reagan sailed on, its flight deck untouched. The carrier had survived a coordinated ambush by two of the world's most powerful submarine forces. The only damage, the scarred stern of the USS John Finn, a badge of honor. This victory was about teamwork. The sonar operator who first detected the threat, the analysts who identified the enemy, the pilots who flew into danger, the escort crews who protected the carrier, the silent crew of the USS Idaho who delivered the final blows. Technology played a part. Advanced sonar, countermeasures, lethal torpedoes, and stealthy submarines. But technology is nothing without the human element. It was skill, training, and courage that turned the tide. The US Navy did not break. They stood their ground and fought with determination. They faced the ultimate test and emerged victorious. They stared into the abyss, and the abyss blinked first. This was survival against all odds. a testament to the strength and resolve of those who stand guard in the deep. The silent hunt was over. The ocean belonged to them, at least for now.